It's time to clean up. I'm a bit scruffy and I'm gonna walk you through my process.
Facial scrub and toner, some shaving gel and aftershave, a razor, and we need our clippers. I think we have everything we need. Let's go to work.
So the first thing I typically do is try to go ahead and get my face prepared for the shave that I'm gonna do. Now, I am gonna use my razor, but I can't use a razor on my chinny chin chin. So I typically will pull out my wall clippers and trim myself up. First things first, let's get this facial scrub on.
Now, I enjoy ensuring that my face is what I like to call buttery smooth. I mean, I want to make sure that I apply a generous layer of my facial cleanser. I use a facial cleanser that has a scrub in it. It feels great, works really well. And here's the other thing. Sometimes what you need to do is make sure that if you have hard, coarse hair like I do on my face and on my head, I make sure that I really lather it in really well. So be mindful of that as you are prepping your face for shaving.
Now, I typically use a facial scrub and toner. Just makes things a whole lot easier, especially when you start talking about the entire shaving process. Back to the voiceover.
Now you may say to yourself, Chris, you just used a scrub. Why would you also use a toner? Again, my facial hair, along with the hair on my head, is very hard, coarse, and curly. So what I like to make sure using my toner is gonna make sure that it makes my skin nice and taut, but it's gonna also smooth out my hair so that I can make sure when I'm shaving, it shaves really easy and it doesn't start to pull. That's the one thing you wanna try to avoid. Towel down, we're ready to go.
So one thing the voiceover hasn't told you is that it's best for you to find a shaving gel that does not have a whole bunch of toxic chemicals in it. That way you keep all the skin irritations off of it. Now here's a tip that I learned from an OG. When you're putting on your shaving cream on your head, you should actually let it sit for a few minutes. So go find something to do while you let it sit. And the reason is because if you're using something that actually doesn't irritate your skin and doesn't cause any problems, you want it to give it time, especially if you have hair like mine that's very coarse and constantly curly. You want to give it time to actually kind of set in so that when you get ready to shave, it's quick and it's simple and it doesn't cause you a whole lot of irritations. I use a simple Gillette Pro Glide shaver razor, works out perfect, and it really comes off really simple now that I've let this actually set in.
Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're shaving is you want to go with the grain of your hair. Now, the crazy thing is I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We were all about waves. So we brushed our hair in a few different directions in order to make those things happen. Well, that means that now that I'm older and I got a few different balding spots, I have to realize that, especially with shaving now with a razor on my head, my hair goes a few different directions. So you want to be mindful that you want to be able to get it completely off. Now that I've done the prep work, I'm making sure that I use the right nice amount of heat and prepping my head with the facial toner and the cleanser. It just makes it so much easier to actually come off. In fact, one of the things you want to be mindful of is that as you are shaving, just make sure that you're going with the grain until you get down to pretty much towards the skin. And if you have a few spots where you recognize that it's still a little rough, then you can kind of start to be able to go from there. But it just makes my life so much easier when I've done the prep work the right way. This way now, I'm all good and it makes life easy. I can get this done in minutes.
All right, now that that's done, got a clean head. And here's the cool part. When you use something that does not have all the toxic chemicals in it, the greatest thing is I have no afterburn. Now, one of the things that I also use as well is actually a really good aftershave. You want to find something that doesn't have any burn. The great way to prevent a lot of the burn is, number one, when you're shaving, make sure you go with the grain. The second thing you want to make sure that you do is that you use a shaving gel that doesn't have a bunch of toxic chemicals and astringents in it that create most of the problem. Now that that part's done, it's time to get under here and clean some of this up.
So because I did most of the work on prepping my face, all I got to do now is just do a little bit of combing and brushing, and I'm ready to go to start my shave.
Other pro tip, I actually like this brush. I've had this brush, the same brush for years. One side is soft, one side is actually hard. And I like that because typically, depending on if I want to keep a very thick beard, I can have one side that I can easily brush down because again, I have very coarse and very curly hair. This really helps. If I typically thin it out, then I have something that doesn't really irritate my skin or dries me out, especially when you start talking about going between winter months and the things that you might actually use on your beard. This actually helps to make sure that it goes out evenly. So I like that. Now here's something you might not know about me. I actually learned to shave in college, not because I wanted to, but actually because I had no choice. I was a broke college kid. Going to pay at the barbershop all the time was not in my cards. My roommate actually was a barber, and so I learned how to just take care of myself at that time, which has saved me oodles amounts of money, but I continue to still do it to this day. So I'm gonna use my wall trimmers and I'm gonna get to it and make this look a whole lot better.
So like I said, I learned to do this back in college, and of course I had my mess ups, my slip ups. I've done all kind of crazy stuff. And for me, I go back and forth on keeping a beard, on just cutting it all off. Typically, I really don't have a preference on time of season. Just every now and then I want to change up my look. The good thing is that I've been doing this on my own for years. And so knowing how to do this myself and knowing what works best for me has been the greatest thing ever. My face is already prepped, so that way when I shave, it comes off pretty quickly and easily. When you do have a beard, obviously you got to have the patience and be able to know how to line yourself up. This has just been something that literally for almost 2 decades now I've figured out how to do. And so, you know, it's really up to you. You can go to a barber, but I will tell you, you know, I think the thing about growing in college and being a broke college kid was that it taught me how to be self-sufficient. Being able to do this at home for myself has been the greatest thing ever.
Now, if you're like me, you might layer a lot of times where I might use my goatee might be a little bit thicker than the rest of my beard. So I'll typically just go ahead and use my Andis clippers that are actually great. Put a guard on it. It makes your life so much easier and a lot simpler in order to be able to shave.
So I've learned how to take care of myself from a, easy perspective when it comes to just using a simple shaver to be able to create layers. So typically with my goatee, I like to keep my goatee thick. So being able to put on this guard makes things so much easier and it tends to look good. The other thing that you got to be able to do is just know that it's kind of hard to mess up, and if you do, you can always cut it off.
All right, so that takes care of the shaving. Now what we got to do is we got to make sure that we actually coat the skin the right way, and I'm gonna tell you a couple of things that I do in order to make sure that my skin is healthy. First and foremost, need some aftershave. Secondly, it's really good to put something, for those of us in the beard gang, something on your beard that's gonna keep it shiny and keep it nice. Now again, I have hard, coarse hair that's very curly, so I typically will put argan oil in my beard. The cool thing about argan oil is you don't need a whole lot and it spreads pretty far. Remember that brush I talked about? This is where this comes into play really well. It'll allow me to be able to even myself out without actually scraping and drying it out. And that's what I like about it. Soft bristles on one side, hard bristles on the other. Well, what you think? I feel like I did a pretty good job. Looks pretty good. Well, we're not done, because the last and what I consider the most important thing about male grooming is cleaning up.
Fellas, if you got a lady in your life, even if you don't, please clean up the area that you just got through working in. It is part of the male grooming process. You're welcome.
All right, guys, well, that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found some value in this video, please do me a favor. Give me a like, share, subscribe, or leave a comment below, and we'll make sure that we respond back to you as soon as possible. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video.
It sound right, boy.